beat. So let me just make sure my streams are coming up. It looks like there goes that one. Let's activate the sound. And let me know if you are here, if you can hear me and all that kind of stuff. I want to make sure that everything is super smooth. And I'm going to be doing the chat in Twitch today, okay? So when you get here, let me know. Yep. Let me turn off my phone on vibrate. Sorry about that. Doop. And what are we doing? We are working with Ableton. We're playing tracks. And believe it or not, a lot of people love DJing with Ableton. I know Tractor is popular. 2-channel mixers are popular. Put in your USB drive and you get both the decks and everything like that. But Ableton has some really massive advantages for DJing, especially when you want to add custom effects units, remix stuff live on the fly, or even add live vocals, live instruments, live soloists, or even mix with like a DJ on turntables, on vinyl, or on CD decks where you don't have sync. You can do a lot with Ableton that's really, really a lot of fun. There are a couple things that are different, and we can talk about that. But mainly, let's get into the groove. Hey, RJ's Vinyl Mix, what's going on? I see you in there, so that's cool. Let me know if you can hear my voice and hear the music. Boom. And I'm going into full screen right now because nobody wants to look at me in my unshaven state. It is so nice out today. I took off my hoodie for the first time in like 3 months. All right, there's screen share, there's restream, and there's Twitch. And let's go full screen. I mean, there's live. Audio good. All right, cool, thank you. And there we are with Ableton. And I don't think you want that little window in the bottom corner, right? Because we want to see the actual effects units and stuff. So here's a new track from our friend Octavio PD. He just released this remix. I just got it on Beatport today. And what we're going to do is get it so I can play this track in a DJ set. So for example, here's Ableton. I was mixing drum and bass a minute ago. Let's turn on the metronome and play this track and see what happens. Metronome needs to go. I want it 21.2. All right. Something is clearly very wrong with this project because there's the metronome going at 172 and there's our track. What we want to have happening for a DJ set is the metronome to be exactly on the beat with the music. So when you press launch on your clip or your track, it's going to play on the grid and it's going to match exactly to the other track from your other one. You can see I've got it set up with deck 1 and deck 2 to model having 2 CDJs or 2 turntables or whatever. So to start off with, before we actually do any of the warping, and that's going to happen down here in the clip view, if you're not too into session view, what you do is select the clip, do Shift Tab, so you can see either the effects in the device view or the actual waveform in the clip view. And the first thing we want to do is set up a couple of keyboard keys to make this a lot easier. You can do this with a push controller or a pad controller or whatever. I want to enter key mapping mode, Command K, or you click on the little key up there. You know you're there when it clicks orange. First, we need to tap tempo. So I'm going to put the keyboard letter T on tap tempo. Second, we want to turn the metronome on and off really easily. So I'm going to put the M on there. And again, you can do this on push with 2 buttons, but if you're not using push, I want to make this easy. Now, these 2 buttons or controllers are super interesting. Phase nudge up and phase nudge down. You might not have ever used these, but they are really cool for just pushing the metronome a little bit faster or slower. So anybody who DJs on vinyl, you know there's times when you're mixing and you need to speed up a little bit. So you can put your hand on the record label and just push your finger forward a little bit on the label to just spin up the BPM a little bit. Or sometimes you pinch the spindle on the top to slow it down, or you drag your finger on the edge of the platter to slow it down just a little bit when you're beat matching. Some people even take their hand and push it forward on the platter to like scooch it faster, which I didn't like doing that because it's easy to do it too hard and kind of mess it up. Or if you hit too hard, you can bounce the needle out. So I would usually push on the label to spin faster on vinyl. But that's what these phase nudge buttons do. And the cool thing is that the longer you hold it down, the more it changes. So let's just listen to the BPM. I put Z and X on these 2 phase nudge buttons, and these are really crucial for beat matching with another DJ or beat matching essentially the metronome to match the unwarped audio. So let's just listen to the metronome. I wanted you to hear what happens with these phase nudge buttons. And the more I hold it down, the faster it gets faster. It accelerates. Or if you just nudge it a little bit, it doesn't really change the BPM, but it kind of like slows it down temporarily and then it returns to its same position. It's not like changing the BPM over here in the BPM field. It's going to keep the metronome at the same tempo, but it'll just quickly scooch it and then let it settle back down or slow it down and then it settles back up. Like a direct drive platter, really, really handy, and we need to have this. So I've got my tap tempo button on the letter T. I can turn my metronome on and off. And now let's go to a track. This is a brand new track. I just got it. It's not warped yet, and I need to make this thing work in a DJ set. So what do we got? All right, it's a house track. First thing is you want to have an accurate starting point, because when I turn on the metronome, it's going to beep exactly at the beginning. You know what I mean? So I'm going to move the start marker directly to the beginning of that. And you know what? Since people are going to be watching this for a little while, I'm going to just type in what I did. Assign keys, T, tap, tempo, Tampa, Florida, tempo. No. I know you got to watch me type. Okay. M for metronome, Z and X. Oh, not uppercase Z, lowercase z. That's important for key mapping. Phase, nudge. And then set start marker to first beat. The warping process, if I can write all these down in the sidebar, that'll be pretty cool. That's actually how I build session lessons too, by the way, as I just go through the steps, put each step in a scene in the master channel, record a little audio clip where I tell you what to do in audio, and then give you hands-on activities to do it. But that's a little promo. We're not here for promo. We're here to warp. So I started the track exactly at the beginning. What you want to look for is a zero crossing. It's basically easy. You can see the beats are the big bumps, and the quiet part is the space in between. So when you're finding the start marker, you want to go to the edge of the quiet space, find where the waveform starts going up and down, and put the start marker where the waveform crosses the zero line so you don't get a click. So for example, a good place to start would be right there because the waveform is crossing the zero line, and a bad place to start would be right here because the start marker, the waveform is above the zero line, so it's going to come in and it's going to make a really bad click, and you don't want that. So zoom out to about the level where you can see the beats start. I'll just go right here, and you want your start marker touching the waveform where it crosses the zero axis. I am DJ T-Dog, Ty-Dog. What did you miss? Well, what you missed was I assigned a couple controllers. So I assigned the key T for tap tempo. And if you see in the master channel, I'm highlighting these. I wrote it down for you, dude. I assigned the M to metronome, Z and X for phase nudge, which is how we control the speed of the live metronome for beat matching. And then we didn't even warp anything yet. So we go into the first track, zoom in, and you want the start marker at the beginning of a beat. So when you press play, it's not going to click and it starts exactly at the same time. Now what I'm going to do is listen to the track, tap tempo, and just try to tap the metronome to match the music. Here we go. Tapping it out. Okay, so I just tapped like 8 bars or something like that. And you see the tempo went from like a high end of 124 to the low end of 125. I'm going to take a guess here. Because this is electronic music, I'm pretty sure the producer made it at an even number. Nobody really produces at 124.3. Like, I mean, you could, but why would you do that? It doesn't really mean anything. So I'm going to guess that 125 is the BPM of this track. Now I'm going to play the track again and turn on the metronome and listen. All right, it's drifting. And this is where it takes a little practice, but what I hear is, what do you guys hear? Type in if you can hear the problem. I know the answer, but tell me if you can hear it. Was that metronome going too fast or too slow? Type in too fast or too slow in the chat so I know you're paying attention. No, I hated those teachers who were like, you better pay attention or you're going to get stay after school. I was like, whatever. So you get the beat. You get the start marker starting at the first beat, turn on the metronome. And now is where the phase nudge comes in. The metronome is drifting. Well, you guys both wrote too slow. The track was too slow for the metronome. So now I'm going to hold down the Z key and use these two to like shift the metronome. And the really important thing to get in your head is that when the track is not warped, like right now, this is playing raw audio at whatever tempo the audio is at. What I'm doing with this phase nudge is I'm changing the speed of the metronome, okay? I'm changing the speed of the metronome to make it line up with the music. Later, we're going to be able to, after the track is warped, that's when Ableton can change the speed of the audio and make it line up with something else like a vinyl DJ or a live drummer or something like that. But for now, when the warp switch is off, we're changing the speed of the metronome to make it line up. Let me do that one more time. And I got to slow down that metronome a little bit, so I'm going to put the tempo down to 124. And now if I can leave it for a good long time and have the metronome stay on the beat, I think we'll be good. And the goal here is to be able to play the whole track, have the metronome exactly on every single beat, and come back in on the drops. And I think we're good. So I'm going to say this track is ready to start warping. We got 124 BPM. I hit the tap tempo to estimate the tempo. I listened to the track with the metronome, and then I used the phase nudge buttons, which I totally love, to really line up the metronome with the audio. Now we can hit the warp switch because we have an idea of what tempo this is at. And look at what live did. This is crazy. Here's our start marker, but there's the number 1 with the first warp marker. So what that means is the metronome is going to click on that number 1 right there, and where you see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. That's like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. At this zoom level, the metronome is going to click where the numbers are in the timeline. And what we want to do is take the audio bumps and make them line up exactly with the metronome. So when I heard that the metronome was going too fast, that would be like the click is coming before the beat. So let's start by telling Ableton where is the beginning of this audio file, because they didn't get it right. So I'm going to go here to our start marker. You see that little black triangle? They give you kind of like an idea of where the transient starts. Double click right there to create a warp marker. I'm going to right click and do set 1.1.1 here. That tells live that the metronome starts here, the track starts there, the audio starts there, everything starts there. And now you can see it's still basically lined up. If you zoom all the way out, the basic test is like go all the way to the end of the track and take a look and see, do the beats still line up? Are they drifting? I mean, that looks pretty good. Let's take a listen. And by the way, if you have any questions, type them in. Let me know where you're at. All right, we're doing pretty good. That is lining up pretty well. It doesn't always happen that way. And especially at the beginning of the song, you really want your beats lining up because that's when you're going to be beat matching. The first minute, like 33 bars or something like that, that's when you're going to be mixing in the new track in on top of the old track, and you really want your beats lined up so it works. So when it's not, when it doesn't line up, after we start we got the track here, we put the first, set the 1.1 marker. Now you have these options: warp from here, warp starting at 124, warp straight, warp 1. What do all these options mean? Well, okay, warp from here is like a general thing. If you don't know what's going on, you just want to warp the whole thing. We're in a better position than that. We know it's pretty much 124 BPM, so we could do start at 124 and hope that the track stayed at the same speed. That would be like if you had a live band, the beginning of the song's at 124 and you're not really sure what happens, you could start at 124 and see what happens. But here's the thing. We know this is electronic music. We know they produced it on the grid, and basically we're pretty sure they didn't change the tempo in the middle of this house track. I mean, some, dubstep sometimes goes to a different rhythm or whatever. It doesn't really change a lot. A lot of electronic music doesn't really change BPM. So we could go here and warp straight, which means we know the track is at the same BPM. We just want to put in warp markers that go there. And if we really know what's going on, we could say, hey, we figured it out. I made this track. It's 124 BPM. I want to warp 124 from here. So let's do the straight option. That means Ableton is going to say, all right, this audio has a BPM that's fixed like a grid. We're just going to put warp markers on there. And I select that option. And now we got all these little gray, little suggested warp markers. So at this point, we're pretty well getting along. Give me a yes if you're with me so far. I see we got a couple people watching. Just type in yes if you're still following and it makes sense. I want to make sure this is going to be useful for everybody and nobody's getting all crazy confused and stuff. And I'm also just stopping to check if I got any questions because I love questions in the chat, and I hate it when I miss a question or whatever. So I'm listening right now. It sounds like the track is staying on the metronome. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to a couple places. Bar 17, like I was saying, it's really important to beat match at the beginning, or to have your track beat matched at the beginning of the song, because that's when you're mixing. And let's check bar 9 after the first 8 bars. We want it to be absolutely tight. Zooming in, looking for that zero crossing. Here's a great example. That big waveform starts the bass bump, and we want that warp marker to be right. And Ableton suggested one over there, but I don't like that one. I want that right there. And now I know for the first, let's even do one at 33. The first 32 bars, which is approximately a minute. Oh, look at this one. Now here we have a chunk of bass that's starting before the downbeat of 33. I'm not sure if that's the same kick drum or if that's a different sound. Might be a bass note coming in a little early. So let's just listen to that and see what is that sound coming in there, and should we move the warp marker? This seems very tedious. Well, I'm explaining it the slow way. If you had a problematic track, I'm trying to go deeper into it to make it sound right. But if you have a track that's on the grid and you're ready to go, you basically can put in the warp markers, go all the way to the end of the track, find a beat, go like this, make sure that last one is on there, and then everything else all along the whole way is going to be done. Like bar 65, you look at that drop. Is the drop good? A little bit early. Might have to scooch it. So yeah, you're right. It is tedious. This is one of the reasons people don't want to use Ableton to DJ with, because you have to prep your tracks ahead of time. But it becomes perfect once you have it, and then you can play many, many multi-track things that are going to stay together, and you can use all your different effects and everything else. So yeah, Ableton, in the past, I've used it more for live performances and live sets when I'm adding other things on top of it. And for straight up DJ sets, I bring a flash drive to a set of Denon decks or Pioneer decks and just play from a library like everybody else. So yeah, these are ups and downs for it. And I know I'm taking a little, maybe a little longer than you want, but I wanted you to get the theory of warping. So what was I doing? The first minute out to bar 117. Let's listen to what happens before 32. All right, so I'm gonna make an executive decision there. Throw that one out. And another cool thing about live is that when you get your warp markers in position, you can put them at the parts of the track where something's happening, so I can just look at it visually and see, all right, first minute is mixing in. There's a little breakdown, 49 to 65. 65 is a drop. Longer breakdown, 129 is a drop. And then usually I like to put in another warp marker towards the end where I want to start mixing the new track, so the last minute. So let's look at 177. Looks like there's something over here. Kick drum drops out and bumps back in. You can see the kick drum is looking like it's about right there. So let's get that zero crossing, drag it to beat 177. And then from 177 into the end, that is about a minute and a half. So that's when I'm like, oh, time to wake up. Track is coming to an end. And if you, let me read this comment. All right, I DJ with old school gangster rap, rock, rap metal, which is why it'd be tedious in my case using Serato for record sets. Yeah. Doing this course to add concepts and skills to my arsenal. Cool, man. I appreciate that. And definitely gangster rap and rock and rap metal. A lot of those are like 3 or 4 minute tracks where there's a really short intro. It's a 2-bar loop of music, and then the outro is not going to be very long. So, and then there's a lot of like instrumental remixes on gangster rap and stuff too, where you just get hard beats. Do you listen to like Necro? Necro is like so not politically correct, but he's like super crazy. So one thing I like to do, and this will help you with doing short tracks, is with Ableton, I'm going to make a loop at the end that's ready to go and saved into the audio file or the warped file, so that when I get to the end of the track, I don't have to worry about running out of record or anything. It's going to be all there ready to go. So 225, let's make a 16-bar loop at the end, and it kind of looks like something happens around 209 where the end of that. Yeah, that double bass drops out. So let's just make sure. And again, if you're using a loop at the end to mix out, you definitely want to make sure your loop is going to be really nice and tight on the grid. So let's find a bass beat right there. And I'm just going to select, hit the loop command, make sure my loop braces are in the right spot. Okay, so now what I've got is a track with the warp. The track is warped. All the beats of the audio are happening at the same time as the metronome, or in other words, it's working. Ice Cube, Ice T, Easy E, man. Why you wear your pants so low, Easy? Eminem, Exhibit DMX, yeah, man. Oh, that chorus, Matt Schultz. What's going on? You know who's gonna find you? Some old man fishing. You're bringing back all these tracks I used to listen to. How about Black Helicopters, right? You know that beat? So, all right, so we got the start marker and bar one, beat one. The first minute of the music is definitely warped real tight with a couple markers to make sure that when we're mixing in, that's gonna work. The middle of the track, you can kind of let it flow. I use warp markers to make sure I can visually see where the beats are gonna drop. So in case I wanna do something fun in the breakdown, like a crazy buildup or an effects unit thing or whatever, I know how much time I have. And then at the end, I put in this 16 bar loop so that when I get to this part where I hear that beat change, now I've got this 16 bar loop where I can mix in the next record and I don't have to freak out that I'm gonna run out of record or stop or anything. So while that loop's playing, I'm just gonna add a couple notes. Warp. What else did we do? The warp mode, warp straight, and add warp markers for song sections. For mix out. Clearly my typing skills are perfect. And what's happening? We're just looping along here. Yeah, those are cool chords, right? And notice my global tempo is at 1/16. I'm going to set this to quarter note, so when I start my loop, when I use this little play head, I can start it on there. And you want to check to make sure that your metronome is still clicking on the beat with your track. RJ, yes, you can definitely send me a song you ripped off vinyl. You want to get the BPM stable throughout. Yeah, that's cool. I can do it for you. I would like it even better if you learn how to do it from this workshop, but I understand you might need some help. So yeah, I'm absolutely down with that. You can do it at, I'll type it in the chat right here, steve@mixitecture.com. That's my email address. All right, and the metronome is stable with the BPM of the track. Everything is lined up. That means when we play another track, Ableton is gonna match both those tracks to the exact metronome, and they're gonna sound perfect when they come out. Last step, do not forget this step. I'm gonna type it in here. Save your analysis file, which equals click the save button. I don't wanna make it annoying. Go here, click this little save button to save the default clip. What that's gonna do is put a little ALS file in your music folder so that next time you take this audio and drag it into a track, you're gonna have all your warp markers and your loop in place so you can drag it into a DJ set and it's ready to go. So yeah, it is a little bit annoying. It makes it harder because of this warping thing. Like, yeah, you can drag a track in, click the warp switch and just go in the middle of a DJ set and hope it's gonna work. And with a lot of electronic music, you can get away with that. But if you're DJing rock and you wanna play like, you know, a Journey song or like a Pink Floyd song that has a disco beat or something in it, you're not gonna always get lucky warping it on the fly. So it is worth it to warp ahead of time and have a folder of tracks that you DJ with that you know that they're warped, and then you're ready to go with it. So what I would do is basically every time I buy a new track, I'd be excited to hear it. So I'd bring it into Ableton, listen to it like 5 times, warp it, save it, put it back in a folder of whatever BPM, and then I know I'm ready to use it later on. And you get good enough at it that it doesn't really take a long time. So let's do this one more time with this one, and let's figure out, I'm gonna do this one at my real speed, okay? Tap and tempo right away. I'm thinking 105. How about that track, right? Okay, so I put the start marker at the beginning of the first beat. I missed that a little bit. There's a really great place to start. Did the tap tempo, took a guess, it's around 105. Let's hit the warp switch. And this beat came in backwards. Okay. What I'm doing right now is holding down the play icon and scrubbing. I want to find where is that exact first beat. It's this drum beat, and it came in not on the 1, but like on the beat 2. Listen to that again from the beginning. All right, so the actual track starts here. Down, now, 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 now. So let's put that. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot to set 1.1.1. Maybe that's why it's messed up. Let's redo this. Okay, 1.1, and start over with metronome. Nope. This is the downbeat right here. And we'll have a pickup note. Down, 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 down. Yeah. Now you can feel that downbeat's landing on the click. So because this beat's a little more complicated, it sounds more like a live drum kit. It's raw, it's funky, it's not exactly starting. It started upside down, it came in inside out, man, being tricky. That's why I picked it. So I'm gonna do the warp thing, not from the beginning of the track over here, because that's a little messy. I'm gonna have to remember when I'm playing this track, I'm gonna have to be like, dude, this has a pickup note. It doesn't start at the downbeat. What I'm gonna do is go over to this warp marker where the beats come in and warp from here. And this time I'm gonna do start at 105 BPM because I'm not 100% sure what happens with this track. It could maybe be a live band that's super tight and sounds electronic. It's probably an electronic track, but let's play it here and go from the downbeat of the drums and see, does it stay under the click? Zoom out, check the later parts. Can I find any places where the beats are really visually clear? I don't know if we're on beat yet. Sounded like a drop around here. And we're drifting a little bit, so I know that the beat on 13 was locked in. Let's try warping here straight. See if that gets us anywhere. All right, Matt, go play in Ableton. Okay, 17 sounded good. This track's a little tricky. See how these beat drops are just a little bit not... I zoom in a lot, but I still want it to be perfect. I wonder what happens if we go warp at 105. And again, this is kind of a tricky track. Let's see if this drop over here by 29 comes in. That looks a lot better. That looks like that comes in on the beat. Two, 3, 4. All right, now that we're getting closer. Yeah, we're good. See, once you get the beginning of the track basically warped and you find a format that works better, first I tried warp from here straight. That didn't really work, so I tried warping at 105, and that worked a lot better. So now I can see that there's like over here by... what are we at? 29 to 45, 29, 39, oops, 16 bars. So let's just go to this little downbeat, and it looks like that one is pretty damn close. So scooch that in there. And at this point, you can go through the track, find a couple of key points. Looks like after around 71, there's a drop. Now it's off again. What's going on with that? It can be hard to warp tracks. I'm not going to lie. It's something that can take a little bit of time, but once it works, it's really worth it. Especially when there's tracks with little gaps that are not 1 bar long and they come in inside out on the beat. So now I'm going to go in every 8 bars, 53. Yep, 61 is drifting. And what I'm doing is I'm going every 8 bars, finding a drop or a beat marker, and making sure they're lining up. Okay, this drop came early. That should be on 73. So let's scrub it. And you know what it was? That snare drum fill around bar 72 threw off the Ableton engine. That's a weird break. And again, we want to get that. If you get visually used to finding bass beats and what they look like as the big ones, it's pretty easy to drag them in the right place. So what happens here is the beat is dropping out. There's a snare drum fill that's a little bit off tempo, and Ableton is adjusting to the flute and some other weird sounds. So these 2 bars right here are the hardest part to warp. Let's listen to that again. Okay, now we're still on the beat, and I think we're going to be all good, but let's go. Now we're into the end of the track. 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. So this was a hard track to warp because it's complex, it's fuzzy, there's a lot going on, it's not very super crisp and clear. So you can see it was hard for Ableton to pick out exactly where the beats were at this end section. But that's really important because after that little drum break and the beat comes back in, you're down to like 30 seconds of music left. So let's see if we can make a loop with the last part of the drum beat that's useful for mixing out. Let's go from that snare drum roll into the drop. I messed it up because my global tempo was on 1/16th, so it started on the nearest 16th note, not the nearest downbeat. So let's go to quarter note. That's easier to start on the beat. Metronome's lined up with the drops or downbeats. Okay, 1, 2, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. All right, and there is our 8-bar loop. I used our loop position and length buttons to do that. You know what's even more fun than that? Sometimes I like to make a loop with the last ending sound, like that flute and ambient stuff, because on top of a new beat coming in, that can sound even more cool. Okay, so I think you get the idea. And what am I going to do last? I'm going to click the save button to write a little analysis file. So next time I want to play this track, I know how to find it and I can remember, all right, 105 BPM set, nice little funky, groovy kind of organica type sound. And that was hard to warp. I mean, you can't really just click the warp button and have that one function. Remember at the beginning, it starts with an upbeat. So it doesn't just start. The downbeat is on that sound, but we don't get that at the beginning of the track. We get a little pickup that goes like this. So I'm going to leave my start marker exactly at beat 1. And the way this would work in real life is when I drag this into a session and I'm playing it in a club or in a set or something like that, I would play it from there. I would notice that it starts on the downbeat. And then at that point during the set, if I have time, I'll roll the start marker back and practice a couple times in the headphones with the cue switch to get it to drop at the right time. And if I don't have time, I'll just drop it from right there and forget that pickup note. Doesn't matter. We keep going. So what do we got? 2:40. I think we're probably doing all right on time. Let me just see if I missed any other comments on the other page. All right. Comments are on Twitch today. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. I'm not sure if this is the best time for everybody in the world, but it's what I can do. And let's stop and run through a little drum loop. This is an even really super basic example. Clearly the metronome's at the wrong speed, so I'm going to play this file again and tap tempo real quick. I got 117. Let's call it 118 and put the metronome on. $117. What if it's 120? I'm thinking it might be 120, so I'm going to hit the warp switch. So my process is listen to the raw audio that's not warped. Tap the tempo to find what you think the tempo is, and listen to the metronome to see if it sounds right with the beat. That's what we did so far. We want to sneak up that start marker exactly on the beginning. Even though that's a hand drummer, they might be late. We don't really know for sure. And I hear the metronome lining up with a couple of hits right there. So let's click the warp switch. It says 60 BPM. I know it's not 60 BPM, so I'm going to hit the double button. That button is called double original tempo. Doink. Because I know it's not a 60 BPM track. Now let's listen to the warped version with the metronome. Okay, what do you notice on the downbeat of bar 2? So now I have a bit of a question. Do we want to have this as a natural sounding little bell that's got some tempo drift, or do we want to click it in and have it be super tight, nothing late, really crisp on the beat? If we want it really super quantized, you can drag that warp marker exactly onto the downbeat of bar 2, and it sounds like this. And there's a reason I did that, because if I'm using this beat in practice, I want to keep it going. I don't want to have that second bar end like that. I want it to be like a continuous loop. And now that it's warped, instead of playing it with the metronome, I can check it against an actual house track and use this little loop as something to play with in a DJ set. With some of my echo effects. Let's turn up the feedback on there and get that a little bit longer, make it a little more interesting. And that's just an example of how you can add other elements to your Ableton tracks in your DJ sets to make it a lot more fun and more interesting, and basically remix on the fly. I have this track, it's a finished track. It's got a whole song structure. I know it's going to take people on a really nice journey, keep the dance floor going, all that kind of stuff. So since I have like 7 minutes or 6 minutes for this track to play out, I'm not going to stand there and do nothing. I'm going to grab some other drum loops, hit them with some effects, bring them in at key elements or key parts of the track, or important moments in the song. So basically, like when this Octavio track is in this long breakdown thing. What's happening? So you got something to do during the breakdown. You can stand there and tweak the mid-range EQ and do that kind of filter stuff on the DJ mixer, but I think it's more fun to have extra elements in live. See if you can create a build-up using your echo effects. Like that. So what did I just do? I took a dumb little bell drum loop. Well, it's a cool bell. It's a cool little loop, but not very exciting by itself. Put it into some effects, went to my effects section, started tweaking stuff, added some feedback. It started taking off and going into distortion. And then I filtered that so that as the, whoa. And I filtered the echo effect so that as this track was going through the breakdown section, approaching the big main drop at 129, you know, on Beatport, when they preview a track, they show you like this much of it. They show you the breakdown and the main drop. So I created an extra buildup using that bell sound and an effects sound to add something interesting in here to make the big drop feel even more big and clean and heavy when it goes. And that gives me something fun to do in live while I'm DJing. So yeah, I know it's a little tedious to warp your tracks ahead of time, but it's so worth it because it lets you do really fun stuff with your Ableton effects racks and other sounds while you are enjoying your DJ set. You can do finger drumming, you can record new beat loops, or you could even be emceeing or talking on the mic or doing anything like that. So I love DJing with Ableton. That's why I do it. And I do play with Traktor sometimes, but not all the time. So that's where we are right now. We looked at how to warp, how to tap tempo, how to set your warp markers, your start markers, find the downbeats and the beats. We looked at how to warp a kind of a ornery track that's not, it drifted off the grid. It did not start at the beginning of the audio with a downbeat. There was a drum fill over on the climax that threw off the algorithm. And this track took some work to get it warped, but it's really worth it. Let's do one more. Let's check out this Dangsha. If you know Asian Dub Foundation, this is a new project from Aniruta who's doing beats like this. Heavy beats. How do I warp this track? I can feel the pulse, but where's the click? 1, 2, 2. Boom. 2, 2, 2, 2. All right, the downbeat is in between the bass beats. I think it's around here. Boom, boom, boom. This is a tricky track because the downbeat of the metronome rhythm, the rhythm does not have a bass beat on it. Okay, we're getting there. might be 120. I'm gonna go with 119. Hit my warp switch, say my prayers. Is there any beat that's on a quarter note? Beat 2 might be. 3, beat 3. So if that's, I'm going to set bar 1 here. If I can just roughly say that beat 3 of the metronome has a bass beat in the track. This is where you want to warp straight, because I know this is electronic music. It's coming from a metronome, but it's not on the grid. It's kind of syncopated off. Nope, didn't work out at all. Let's try warp starting from 119. All right. So you can see on every 3 beat 3 of every measure, there is a bass bump. So let's listen to that a little bit more and see if we're lining up on the metronome. And this one's hard to warp because it's just not a traditional beat at all. So in this situation, when I basically have it working, I like to skip all the way out later and see if it's still holding on. Okay, I set my global tempo, global metronome to 1 bar. So when I click in the timeline, it's going to start the metronome click on a downbeat of the beginning of a measure. Okay, and that still sounds like it's working. Here's... And again, the meaning of this, don't worry about the music theory and the rhythm and the time signature and the beats and bars and measures. The main idea is that when I press play on this track, I want it to come out lined up with something else at the same tempo. Since we're at 119, I'm going to go across from this Octavio track. Let's pretend we're mixing out at the end. 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4. So now we're in the end loop of the house track. And let's say I want to shift to some grimy, grungy fuzz bass from Dangsha, which is super cool. Pretend I got a DJ mixer here. Cut the bass out of Octavio. And the question is, does this new track sound good on top of the other track? And this is a weird mix. Honestly, these are 2 totally different styles, and I don't think I would drop Dangsha in a house music DJ set. But the point is, Dangsha is holding straight on the metronome. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, it's not. The middle of the track got off a little bit. So we get the Dangsha track holding steady on the beat, and then when we play it on the end of the other track, you can hear how those are interacting nice. And again, you really want to pay attention to warping the first minute or so really tight, because that's where you're going to be making the mix. And when you got it in place, hit the save button. So there we go. That has been close to an hour of warping with Steve, and we looked at how to warp a pretty simple straight up deep house track where It's crisp. All the beats line up. You can zoom in and actually see the beats one by one. And that's pretty much what Ableton does by analyzing it, not visually, but, you know, with the transients in the waveform. We looked at warping a more of a funk track that's got not a variable tempo, but the rhythm had some snare drum breaks and some dropouts that were unpredictable enough that Ableton had a hard time warping it. So we had to go in close and zoom in and warp bar by bar to make sure the drop happens on the beat, which is really critical. We looked at a process of tapping tempo, turning on the metronome, using these phase nudge buttons to line up the audio to line up the metronome to stay with the audio. Set the warp marker to the first beat in the audio, click on the warp switch, do warp straight or warp BPM, choose the right option. Add warp markers for song sections so as you're DJing, you can see where the drops are going to happen. And most importantly, you can see where you're going to run out of track. Make a loop at the end so you have something to mix out of when you're going into your new track. And I cannot say enough about the power of looping at the end of the track. Like, I could loop this end that was this solo section. I could take that loop, start hitting that with effects, and bring in the new track dry. There's so much fun stuff you can do when you have a loop and you're not going to run out of record and your hands are free and you have some effects to play with. You can get beat repeat going. You can get a resampling thing happening. You can get a little looper happening and really create totally new sonic universes with loops and layers in Ableton that stay beat locked. Lots of fun for you to tweak with effects and everything. And that it's just as much as you can imagine you can do to play with. Really can't say enough about that. We also looked at warping a track from Dangsha where there is nothing on the downbeat, and the only predictable beat I could find with an audio on it was beat 3. So boom, 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 3, 4. And the downbeats did not have any transient waveform on them. So that was kind of hard to warp, and I might not be done with this one yet, but I wanted to show you that you might have to warp some audio where there is nothing on the downbeat. And for a simple version, we looked at one short drum loop that's only 2 bars long, and we made it and you can play around with a loop length, loop braces, and all that kind of stuff to also remix your beats on the fly and add some little fun extra percussion stuff in your tracks. So let me get out of screen share land back into camera land. My camera always goes out of focus when I change to camera land. Let me get that back in focus. Here I am in my little blue studio. Thanks for watching, everybody. This has been production instruction number 2 on Wednesdays. And if 2 p.m. is a good time, I'll keep doing it at this time. If you would like it at a different time, leave me a comment. The replay is going to be on YouTube, and I want to make this available to as many people as possible. So share this channel if you can, subscribe to me on Twitch, and come back every week for more production tips with Ableton Live. I love teaching this stuff, and I'm happy that Twitch is growing as a platform. Send me an idea for a new topic you want me to teach about. I mean, I have no shortage of things to talk about, but I'm always open to new suggestions. And thanks a lot for watching. All right, RJ. Yeah, so if you want to send me a track, send me an email. I can listen to what you got. And I would be happy to actually do something like warp the audio that you have. Maybe we could do a video meeting and I'll just show you what I did and we could talk about what else you have going on that you might need some help with. I'm totally down with that. But for now, I'm going to go out for a bike ride. It's a beautiful day. It's nice out. Need to get a little exercise so I don't get my studio atrophy happening. And I'll see you on Friday night. I'm doing a DJ set with more music from people in the Mixotexture group. Not sure what tracks I'm going to play, but they're going to be cool and originals and electronic. And it's happening Friday night. So see you then.